everyone, for today's video I will be discussing the definition and preparation of instructional materials. In Unit 1, I will be discussing the instructional materials definition, significance, and kinds. What is instructional materials? Romeliard and Heck 2014 stated that instructional materials are human and non-human materials that can be used to encourage, improve, and promote teaching and learning activities. While Faiz and Dahan 2011 stated that instructional materials are print and non-print items that are designed to impact information to students in the educational process. Amadio 2000 stated that instructional materials refer to those alternative channels of communication which a teacher can use to concretize a concept during teaching and learning process. And Adalico 2013 stated that instructional materials serve as a channel between the teacher and the students in delivering instructions. Instructional materials are any tools that are used for educational lessons and can be used to help teaching more effective for student learners. And instructional materials are materials that is used for learning. It can be a multimedia, materials, printed materials, or any tools that a teacher uses for his students inside the classroom. IMs specify an organized way of designing, carrying out, and employing the total process. These materials brings life to learning by stimulating students to learn. Any resources that is used to have an effective learning is an instructional materials. The educational values of instructional materials. To help clarify important concepts. In order for students to understand certain abstract concepts, they have to experience real thing or an artificial substitute of the real thing. To arouse and sustain students' interest. Students have seen or touched an object, they are more highly motivated to learn and has a bigger chance for them to understand better. To give all students in a class the opportunity to share experiences necessary for new learning. With the use of instructional materials such as pictures, films, and recordings, there are bigger opportunities for students to share experiences with each other, which will provide them to have a wider experiential backgrounds for certain new learning. Printed and duplicated materials are all textual and other materials that can be run off in large numbers of a duplicator or printing materials that the students will be using. This includes textbooks, supplementary materials, handouts, individualized learning materials, and resource materials for group exercises. Non-projected visual instructional materials are visual display materials without the use of an optical or electronic projector that can be shown to a small group, class, or individual student. This includes chalkboard, whiteboard displays, felt board displays, magnetic board displays, charts and wall charts, posters, photographic prints, dioramas, models or mock-ups, realia, and specimen. Still projected visual instructional materials are all visual display materials which do not incorporate movement and which requires an optical projector of some sort in order to show them to a class or group or enable them to be studied by an individual learner. It includes overhead projector, transparencies, and similar materials and slides. Audio instructional materials. These materials includes all the various systems whereby straightforward audio signals can be played to a class or group or listened to by an individual. This includes radio broadcasts, gramophone records, and audio tapes. Audio-visual instructional materials are a kind of instructional materials where the audio and visual materials are combined to form integrated instructional systems and includes a number of media that are particularly suitable for use in individualized learning such as films, television broadcast, and videotape recordings. Past instructional instructional material is the computer-mediated. This category includes all the various materials that require a computer power of some sort to enable them to be displayed, studied, or used to support and facilitate teaching and learning activities. This includes database systems, interactive video systems, Google Classroom, Mentimeter, Kahoots, demonstration Unity resources, and language laboratory. Principles in selecting instructional materials. For the preparation of instructional materials, it must be carefully planned, selected, organized, refined, and used. In order to outline factors that should be taken into consideration when choosing materials for some specific instructional purposes, there are 5 principles to consider. In this principle, instructional material must promote the general and specific goals of the class. For example, the teacher is teaching in elementary. He or she should give a follow-up information, just like using an instructional materials that will help them enhance their learning. The second principle is the principle of authenticity. In this principle, instructional materials must present accurate, up-to-date, and dependable information. Just like discussing a topic about the climate change, you need to present or give an information about what is the current issue regarding on climate change. Principle of cost. In this principle, substitute must be considered first. Low-cost materials are the teaching aids which require no cost and available cheaply. You don't need to spend a lot of money. As much as possible, use the instructional material that is available in your classroom. Instructional materials are very important, but your teaching skills is what matters most for an effective learning. The fourth principle is the principle of interest. In this principle, instructional materials must catch the interest of the learners. It must be new, varied, presented attractively, and has appealing content. And it must stimulate curiosity and satisfy the learner's need to know. Instructional materials must have the power to motivate and encourage creativity and imaginative response among users. It is difficult for the teachers to teach students if the students' interest did not focus to their teachers. And that is why your instructional materials should catch the interest and attention of your organization and balance. Instructional materials must be well organized and well balanced in content. Purpose of the materials must be clearly stated or perceived. There should be logical organization, clarity, and accordance. So instructional materials must promote the great generic specific goals of the class, such as vocabulary level, difficulty of concepts, methods of development, and interest appeal. And that's all for today's discussion. Thank you for watching.